Well, hello. Welcome to What's on the Menu, facilitating choice and voice in the classroom. My name is Kelly McCauley. I am the Reach or the Gifted and Talented Facilitator at Oakdale Middle School here in Rogers. The purpose of this session is to share with you a learning strategy that was developed to really try to encourage student engagement as much as possible in the classroom. I was aiming for levels that I had not gotten to previously experience. So this is just kind of sharing with you something I'm trying different this year in my classroom. And I wanted to share with you the resources that I'm using and and just explain what it looks like in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, so I'm going to pause here for just a second. This is a QR code that should be linked to this presentation that you're about to watch. But in the presentation, I have some links to some resources that I wanted to make available to you. So that way you might see something you could take back and use in the classroom next week or in a couple of weeks or maybe after spring break, or maybe just kind of to get some ideas for things if you want to try something new next year. So just want to pause for just a second here. And of course, feel free to pause the presentation and take the time that you need if you'd like to go through this presentation on a personal device while you watch it here. All right, so I don't know how many of you ride horses by any chance. I've kind of grown up around them. My mom is very active with horseback riding and has done a fair amount of some training, but also breaking horses. And so, just my experience with the learning menus this year have felt a little bit like the way I imagine riding bridleless and bareback feels. I've ridden bareback on horses, but never have gone bridleless. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to ride bareback or if you've also gone bridleless. But I hope that right now you're thinking about what that might be like. I do have a video, just wanted to share with you at least kind of what it can look like. Let's see. This is a video, a lady named Stacy Westfall. She's an award-winning rider who goes bridleless and bareback.
Stacy Westfall will be riding. Stacy Westfall and Wizard's Baby Doll. Stacy would like to dedicate this ride to her dad, who went to live in heaven just 24 days ago. Thanks for teaching me to keep trying new things. Stacy Westfall.
So using learning menus this year was definitely trying something new in my experience for me, as well as my students. And so just some of the things to notice as we're watching this, the kind of trust that Stacy has to have for her horse, that this horse is going to remember the signals that she has trained it to remember, the procedures that they have set up, and really the trust that happens between both of them for this relationship to work. And just the time that she's put in with this. It's really fascinating to see what this horse is able to do through that training. And if you're watching the horse's mouth, it's kind of interesting how that tongue is sticking out. What I've learned from my mom, that the tongue is that signal of, from the horse, the signal of that submission. That horse is really listening. It's focused on its trainer, its teacher. I think it's kind of interesting how sometimes when working with young children, we'll see something kind of similar for them whenever they're thinking really hard or concentrating. Sometimes you'll see the tongue come out and kind of lick their lips while they're concentrating. But, well, I could sit and watch that video probably all day. However, that's want to go ahead and move forward, but there's the video link, of course, if you would like to watch the whole thing. It really is pretty remarkable. But the learning menus to me feel a bit like that experience because there is a lot of work that goes into it on the front end. But once you get going, it's pretty exciting to see the students, kind of take over. And then you see what what you've been able to kind of help them learn how to do and for them to be more independent and autonomous with their learning. All right, so the whole purpose for this presentation and setting up this session was really just to provide some information about using learning menus as a strategy for student engagement to kind of keep them active and interested in the subject matter, but it also helps to ensure some differentiation, which is a term that gets used a lot in pedagogy, and so that's sometimes it can be really hard to do. And so this is just one way of facilitating choice and voice in the classroom. And so when I think about the inspiration for this model of learning at the beginning of the year, our new director had said that choice and voice was something that a goal to really aim for this year. And so I started thinking, what does that look like? Where do we get choice and voice in real life? And kind of one of the things that I came to was whenever you go somewhere like a restaurant, or if you're kind of trying something new, you may get a menu of choices. We see that on social media. We see that anytime we go out to eat somewhere. And so that's kind of where I came up with, like, having a menu for something. And then years ago, I had a student that shared that his philosophy of teaching, of school, was that learning should be fun and games. And at first, it was kind of like, well, yeah, of course, I'd hear a young person say that every learning should be fun and games. But the more that I've let that sink in over the years, and this child has gone on to high school, and I believe that they've graduated, the more I actually do believe that. We know that we tend to learn things and remember them better if we are having fun with them. So I think there's something to that. And I also, this was the first year that I became a virtual teacher. I'm doing both virtual and in person. And to be successful with virtual teaching and learning, I really had to open my mind to something that's drastically different. And so, are any of you watching this presentation? Any of you have any experience or know about a flipped classroom, or any of you who have used Learning Station? I'm finding that this style of teaching, and particularly learning, it seems very similar to the flipped classroom and as well as learning stations. And I think we're getting to the spot where I'm just going to go ahead and close out that little box there. Um, and so the learning menu. This is really just the title that came to my mind, and so what it started with was a collection of unit materials that I already have available. Trying something brand new, I needed to stick with material that I'm already familiar with and that I feel very confident with. At the very beginning, there was a fair amount of time that was needed to make us all these materials available in a digital format. Some of them already came that way, but some others I kind of had to play around with it and make it work. So in the learning menu, and I'm going to show you an example here in just a moment, each student will see that each unit has a brief description. There are links available to the resources that are going to be used. I have only one unit called Fowler's Codes and Ciphers that we use at our all four of our middle schools here in Rogers. We've all had some experience with this. And I have not yet found a Fowler's Codes and Ciphers that is available in a digital format. So that's really the only one that we have to use physically and face to face. So the learning menus, though, I've tried to keep them structured so that the students can learn as much as they can at their own pace. They may not finish every single item on the menu or in their unit. So I do set a deadline and goals for specific need to know pieces for certain ones. And so I'll show you more of those here in some examples. And so the three groups of students that I get to work with, I have my virtual group of students. The ones that I meet with weekly are sixth and seventh grade. And so they actually have assignments for the eighth through 12th grade students. I just try to check in with them, make them aware of opportunities that are available for them. And of course, that I'm also a source of support if they need some help filling out an application, or if they need like a letter of recommendation, for something as they're planning for after high school. So it is. So back to the focus here. These are the menus that I've got for my virtual, my sixth, and my seventh grade in person students as well. Please keep in mind that this is an evolving process. And so some of these menus are kind of under construction right now. The first one that I started with my virtual students, so I'll just kind of start off first. Sharing with you the first semester or the first quarter menus. So, this is what they look like here in the beginning. And so our overall units that we've kind of used over the years, forensics to cryptography, which is a little like the codes and ciphers. Computer science is actually a topic area that I personally have very little knowledge of this particular content. So I've tried to provide some digital links for my students. One of the things that I like about the learning menus is that my students are not limited by the things that I have experience with and the things that I'm knowledgeable about. If they are knowledgeable or if they're interested in something that I really don't know much about, I want them to be able to go and explore that. And so that's one of the other things that I like about these learning menus. There's also a fashion unit here. This was something that I got from our director, Tim Smithy. This is a fashion unit that he has developed, and so just kind of have borrowed from that. So this is my first year with the experience with the fashion. I've had three students who have chosen this one, and it's really neat to see what they're doing. I'm actually going to show you some examples of some student work here pretty soon. Problem-based learning. This actually comes from our. We have a subscription to a service that's been providing us with problem-based learning projects. And so I've posted those. I haven't had as many students take me up on this one this year, but I've had some who've done creative problem solving. And now a big one this year is this Minecraft Rube Goldberg competition. So I have several students competing in this virtual and in person. So I'll just start here sharing, just kind of sharing this link with you. This is pretty cool. The students doing this challenge they're applying the engineering design loop. So it involves both creative problem solving as well as the engineering design loop. Their deadline here is March 9th. They're going to submit a Flipgrid of their project that they have built. And so basically, just in a nutshell, for this contest, it's a little like Odyssey of the Mind. The students are faced with a problem. In this case, the problem is to build a Rube Goldberg machine that in the end will open and illuminate a book. And then it's up to the students as to what kind of theme they use, the story that they're going to tell. It's very cool, and it's a good kind of digital version of the Odyssey of the Mind experience. I will say at the beginning, that's the hardest part for the facilitator, just kind of getting everyone set up with their accounts. It is free, at least for the Minecraft Education Edition. I think they have a grant that covers it. So it really is free to the teacher and free to the students, as long as the students actually have access to be able to get to the Minecraft world and to be able to build on it. So once you get them all set up with their accounts, it really does run itself, and the students kind of they take over, and I really just monitor and have them check in. They set goals. All right, so I could talk about that one all day, but let's move forward. And I'm not going to go through each one of these. That's why you have the QR codes. That way you can go into these links. And so on this one, Khan Academy, this will be the last link that I'll show you here. You'll see, we can see some of these other links in with the other groups, but Code Academy is one of the websites that some of the students can use. This one was actually shared with me from another student. And actually probably some of the teachers may have some experience with this one as well. Clearly, I have my own, a little bit of experience with it, but it's really cool. It's a good resource for students who want to learn that kind of skill. So Moving on, and just want to show you the sixth grade and the seventh grade, their first quarter. It's a little different from what the virtual students have because I'm going to be in person with these students here. So for the forensics, which we've always done with our sixth graders, I'm just going to share with you a copy of one of the presentations that they do. And so the students would go through this presentation specifically about the steps of crime scene investigation. This is what I would say is one of those need to know basics for the students who are choosing this unit. And so this will be one of the things that I would tell them that this is where they start with this unit. They need to know the 7 S's. They need to know the low card exchange principle. So they go through this, they'll take some notes. Now, for some students who are very well organized, they have their own system of taking notes. I let them do their notes and have them focus on bold, underlined terms, those types of details, and some of the things in the pictures. For the students who maybe need a little bit of help with organization, a set of guided notes that can kind of help, kind of fill in the blank notes that can help those students. So this is really designed to be self-paced. We have a few other presentations. I'm lucky enough to have some colleagues that have made those presentations, and I just get to kind of borrow the presentations or make copies of the ones they've developed, which is really cool. So these presentations, I would say, are the need to know things for these students to start with for sure. And then the ones they can kind of do at their own pace or not really, they're doing the whole thing at their own pace, but it doesn't matter which one of these they want to do first. They may want to go straight into their red herring crime scene investigation, which is a who killed Barry mystery. It's a story that involves there's been a death, and so they are going to find out, who is responsible for killing this character Barry, and it's kind of like a British theme. It's kind of almost like something straight off the BBC right here, Barry Cuda, right? So I love that they play with the names, and so that's the mystery there. And it'll take you to, I'm trying to find where my link is. Here we go. So the students would go to this link here, the red herring games, and takes just a second, but it's super cool, and they can scan around. I'm going to click anywhere to start and just kind of show you what this looks like. And so they would look all around in this kind of crime scene, but it also takes you to other locations. This isn't the only place they see on the screen. You actually use kind of follow the screen to take them around. Students who are a little skilled in video games, they're going to take to this pretty intuitively. And then they interview suspects and stuff, and so there's video footage. It's very cool. And then they can go to these other links like investigating fires, and how arson is investigated. And then this is a pretty cool virtual tour. It's on YouTube. And I do like to use these guided questions for students to complete as they're going through that tour. So the forensics is it's a big deal for our sixth graders here in our Rogers Reach program. And so we've got a good deal of resources there. Now, on all of the options, students, virtual, sixth grade, seventh grade, in person, they're all going to create a presentation at the end of our unit. So it could be at the end of the first quarter, end of the second quarter, or end of semester, whichever works for your school. And I really like to let students present however they want, sometimes Google Slides, but I've also had students before do puppet shows. I had a student who one time did a presentation on a book, and he actually composed his own piece of piano music to show the plot of War of the Worlds. So pretty open in how they want to present. But we just do have some criteria that they need. So depending on what your learning objectives are, that's what you want to set your criteria on. So for these students, we also have the cryptography, the computer science, like the virtual students also have access to, problem-based learning. And I don't have Minecraft on here, but you'll see that on one of their other learning menus. So, and then here's the seventh grade. We'll kind of look at that just at a glance. It's going to be very similar. Again, cryptography, computer science. These students really haven't had, because the cryptography and computer science, it's kind of new. So not a lot of my seventh grade students have had experience with it. So if they missed it in sixth grade, like for them to get it in seventh grade. And so, one that is unique to my seventh grade this year, a couple of them that are unique to them, is the college or university investigation. I had one student who did this. And so the idea is that they will research a couple of universities that they're interested in and then create a brochure for each school to show that the research they did. I am really big on bibliographies. I want all of my students to be able to know how to do a bibliography whenever they graduate into eighth grade. For this project, and this was new this year, never had done it before. So just kind of created a brochure checklist for the students that wanted to do that. So feel free if you want to make your own copy of this, if this kind of would be helpful for you, feel free to make a copy and make it your own. Obviously, I have my name in it. Um, so that is what, whenever my students are working on a presentation, they do get a document like that to kind of help them to just go through a checklist and make sure they have all of the criteria. One that I've done in the past and hadn't gotten to do it in a few years was a survival in the wild research project or writing their own original short story. Something I got to do in college, and I had a lot of fun with it. So these are all of the resources that I had when I would do this, leading all of my seventh graders through this unit together at one time. These are the resources I would use. So um, I do put it in the order that I think it's best for students. I do tell my seventh graders that are doing this that they do need to do the survey at first to kind of see what they know. It's like a pre-test about survival skills. Then they've got a couple of presentations to go through. The field manual of Army survival is very useful. It's also very lengthy. So, from about what is survival bias on down, the students can kind of jump around and do these in the order that they would like to do. And the field manual of Army survival is so big. I tell them not to worry about reading the whole thing, but they can jump around to the parts of it that they are interested in, and also use it as a research resource for their project, or if they choose to write the story. Um, I also have my own short survival story that they can read and see that I've also done this, and so I'm happy to help them with any of my experience. And then I have the criteria for a research presentation, and then the criteria if they choose to write the short story, what they would do. And then another one that my seventh graders actually requested was to really be able to research something of their own interest. And so we just thought, well, let's do a choose your own adventure research project. And so we've got some topics that are generated, kind of brainstormed ideas, um, but they can also come up with their own topic, right? And so again, creating that presentation, however they want to present. I do have a rubric for what I want to see in it, but I will also sit with them and they're going to look at what GT standards they're going to show in their presentation. So we'll get to that here in just a moment also. All right, so these were the first menus that my students would see. And then I kind of changed it up and I thought, I thought that those in that kind of outline form, it was a little bit overwhelming. And so this I actually like better for the second round. It's a lot of the same units, but instead of seeing an outline, they're actually seeing really just kind of like a little blurb about it, just like a little summary of that unit. And then they can click on the link. Now I'll go here to the forensics because you've seen this. And then they can click on the link and actually see what the guided unit is like for that unit. And so I feel like they can kind of explore that first menu with this, excuse me, the synopses, and then they can click on the links to see the guided unit. Excuse me. Kind of got a tickle in my throat, and I need to drink some more of my water. So these are a lot of the same options as what you saw in the other unit. I'm not going to click through every single one of these links. If you would like to pause the presentation, and if you used that QR code, feel free to kind of explore. If I had been able to be there in person, I wanted to take a few minutes and just kind of let everyone kind of click around on these links and see what it's like. And I wanted you to kind of be able to click around on the links and see what it looks like as the student and kind of see, which one would you pick? So that is the one I think from the virtual students. I'll show you the sixth grade menu option. So this one is very similar. As far as the Rube Goldberg challenge goes, I do have one virtual team, two sixth grade teams, and two seventh grade teams. So pretty stoked about it. And it's a global competition. They're competing against kids from Germany, as well as Malaysia. And I think Florida, there are students competing in Florida, and then a few teams here in Arkansas competing. But I think so far I've only seen Arkansas and Florida as far as the U.S. teams, but I could be wrong. But it's a lot of fun. It really is cool. And again, the forensics, the CSI, cryptography, the fashion, problem based learning, the stock market game. Some of you are probably familiar with that. So, for the second semester, really the third quarter the second quarter into the third quarter, the stock market game is kind of going on. And so, or it goes on all year. But I like it. I personally kind of like to take the second session on it. Um, and so that's what we're doing right now. Again, I have one sixth grade team, two seventh grade teams participating in this. And so I also have a guided unit. And I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. And you also have access to this through the links. Now, it's not going to have access to everything as if you were competing in the stock market game. The website, there is so many more resources. I've just got a few of the things that we use here. But the students are going through this right now. And so it just kind of goes through each lesson. I've got 9 lessons on here. And right now, most of my students, my sixth grade students, are right here on the diversification part. They're kind of wrapping that up. My seventh grade students are right here at the risk part. Excuse me. And so that's kind of, and even the teams there are kind of, so they're self-paced, but they're not too far off from each other. And right now is a very interesting time to be watching the stock market. All right. So that's the sixth grade menu here for the second round. And so, what I like about those is that the menus are kind of has that little description, and I think that probably helps better with the decision making process. And the seventh grade one, this really I should have the big under construction sign on. My seventh graders. So actually, the way those students decided to group up is each class period of my seventh graders, they all actually chose the same unit. They're just in different groups. So I've got one group of 5 students in seventh grade. They're playing the stock market game. And so they're going through that guided unit. Another group of, 5 students, they chose the Rube Goldberg contest. So I've got they are divided up into 2 teams. And so they're working on that during the class period. I'm kind of help guiding that process. And then I have another group that they really weren't interested in really any of the units. And so I thought, okay, well, this is a whole nother problem or another challenge, not a problem. And so what I thought, again, coming back to the learning should be fun and games. I thought, well, this group, they did share that they wanted to do something all together. They wanted to be a team. They liked some team building activities we did at the beginning. So we are trying something new. And so I thought of the build your own game idea. Thought, okay, well, this group can work together as a team to develop a game that would be teaching students concepts from one of the other units. So they would still have to learn the content from one of the units, but create a game. And so it's kind of tailored to fit their interests, but they're still going to be learning GT processing skills from one of the other units. And so they chose the cryptography unit, and they decided that they are making an escape room. And so I hope that I haven't bitten off more than we could chew, but that group is working on an escape room. The story has to do with a robotics AI that is going to enslave all of the people unless the students can decode some messages and defeat the evil robot and save us all from a future of slavery to the robots. So it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely a challenge right now, and I will add those resources as because I'm kind of building that airplane as we're flying it right now, and the students are kind of helping me too. We're deciding, what's the criteria, what are the objectives, and so I'm hoping to next year have more. Kind of better resources to actually help, for a teacher to share with another teacher, as to, if you wanted to do this, here's how we did it. So this area is kind of under construction, but that's what I like about the learning menus, is that, for someone who's, if you want to be creative and flexible, this could be pretty exciting. But it definitely is. We're definitely trying some new things. And global studies, I didn't really have anyone want to take on this unit individually, so we're going to do it. When we come back from spring break, after the stock market game is done, after Rube Goldberg is done, I'm going to take everyone through global studies, and then they're going to get back to choice and voice in, choosing their own research topic within globalization and global studies, because it's such a huge area there. So that's just kind of showing you the menus, and you've got this, hopefully, so that way you can explore those menus and the links more, and kind of look at what does the student see. And so whenever they are choosing their options, I also have them weigh pros and cons before they decide what unit they want to do. So we go through the decision making process. And so assessing at the end of the unit. So the students will have the criteria that I set, like this is the checklist for the brochure. So they have the criteria that I want to see, like a bibliography. I want to see a title. I want to see, pictures. And then what I also do with the students, is, I sit down with them. We have some forms, with the GT processing skills, and they're kind of broken down individually by the standards. I know this doesn't, this probably, should look familiar to you. You just may have seen it in a different format. And then over here we have the 4-point kind of grading scale for it. And so what I do is I'll take a form like this. And we've got so many of the skills. So we look at, which skills, do we want to target for this presentation? And I'll have the students, tell me, how are they planning to present? And then which of these skills are they going to show with their presentation? And they each have their own sheet, and we're making notes on it. What am I going to look for in their presentation for them to show me what their presentation is going to represent, or what standards their presentation is going to show them, their ability to do. And then the students, the audience, they will also have a blank document. And what I like for them to do is they're going to annotate which skills they saw that presentation demonstrate. And so they're actually going to give feedback to their peers about, this is what I saw your presentation show. And what I'm hoping for is that the presenter will see that their presentation may have shown more than what they thought it would. And it's also kind of good for them to see if what they intended, if their audience really did see it. So I'm going to show you here one example of a student generated rubric. So I've got the name kind of hidden there. And so these are some of the notes that I take. So this is a student who was presenting on the forensics. They were going to show metacognition by telling us about their favorite thing about this unit and why. They decided to show their ability to sequence information to make a point and verify a solution by explaining the process of fingerprinting. Also explaining the fire investigations and kind of some of the attributes of what happens there, and then providing some supportive evidence about forensics and crime scene investigation by explaining 4 concepts they took away from that. One of those concepts would have to be the 7 S's. That's just kind of a requirement. Somewhere in there, they've got to include the 7 S's, the Locard exchange principle. And I have the students decide, where is that going to fit in their presentation? Which standard are they going to show in that explanation? So it does take a little time to get around and conference with each student, but I think that the payoff is definitely worth it. So why am I doing learning menus even in the first place? It does allow me to let go of the reins. I feel more like a facilitator this year than I ever have before. It does involve letting go of some control. Kind of again, that's why it goes back to that riding bareback and bridleless. I've got to trust my students that they're really going to take what they've learned and that they're going to apply it and stay engaged. And what I really like about it is that I feel that my students are able to take some concepts much further than they would have been able to if they were relying on my instruction and my knowledge. I really want to pull the roof off for them. The other cool thing is that this does allow some of the students to participate in some challenges, some competitions that they wouldn't have been able to the way that I did things previously. This is the first year that I have sixth graders competing in the stock market game. Previously, I only did that with seventh graders. And honestly, not all of them were interested in the stock market game. And so it was kind of hard to keep them engaged. So it's really exciting to see that the ones who chose it this year, they're passionate about it and they are watching current events. They are watching those stocks. They come in excited. They come in sometimes angry. And so it's just really cool to see them actually, feeling engaged with it. And also for the ones who are really competitive and like the feeling of winning, all the time, it's actually a really good chance for them to experience some personal growth and to see that in the stock market game, no one wins the whole time. No one loses the whole time. It is really up and down. So it's just really cool to see that. And so also in this, it does allow, I think, students to go deeper into some of the topics of their passion. And so I've seen that with students when they are more engaged with their learning. I feel that it's a really good use of their time and of their resources. So that's just kind of how I feel about this. So yeah, if you're curious, what does this look like in the classroom? Because I'm probably maybe describing something that still, it's like, I just don't know what this looks like. Again, I want to go back to a flipped classroom. It's not the exact same as a flipped classroom, but it's similar. And also like learning stations. Several of you probably have some experience with those. So I talked to you a little bit about the fashion unit. So here's a student who's creating an original fashion design. And so on this child's Chromebook, you can see they're looking through that presentation that our director had made a while back. And then the student also has their own notebook. They're using the composition notebooks that we provide to take notes on fashion as well as to keep up with their own personal sketches. And it's just been so cool to see this student go on and develop in the ability to design their own fashion. And this child is using Encanto as their inspiration for some designs. And so these dresses that you see here are inspired from some of the characters. And so it's cool how this student is also representing using some symbolism for these characters, like the flames with the butterflies. I think they said that this is for Abuela. And so an Abuela, I guess, is a warm, caring character. The student also said, they're planning on adding some color and looking at like an ombre design on this dress. If I remember right, I think they were going for some warm colors on the ombre, some oranges and yellows. And so it'll be really cool to see it develop. And they have also more sketches, more than we've got time to go through here. So it's just been super cool. Now here are some sixth grade students. On this side, these are the students that are doing the Fowler's codes and ciphers. So they have on these pages in their packets, they have some hidden messages that they're trying to decode. And there's really a story to codes and ciphers. It has to do with a hidden treasure. You've got some detectives who are trying to figure out, the background story of the hidden treasure and where, kind of the path that the treasure took and where it could be found now. And so they are deciphering things using like a Caesar shift cipher. There's a disk cipher. They're also deciphering like hieroglyphs. Some of these things are based on actual codes and ciphers that have been used in real life. Some others, it kind of looks like maybe a made up language or kind of based off of some kind of like islander kind of hieroglyph type language. So it's really cool. It's really neat, and it is hard. I'm not kidding. And so these boys have been taking some notes. They really are looked puzzled. They've had pictures. I let them take pictures so they can have colorful pictures of the book itself, and they put those on their phones so that way they can kind of look at maybe some details that are a little blurry from a photocopied version. And so they've been working really hard. And kind of, I think that it makes them break out a sweat. They're thinking so hard. Over here, I've actually got another student working on codes and ciphers individually. So this student is working on it on her own. And so she highlights her notes, she color codes some of the ciphers. It's, to help her keep the information organized. It's very hard. But it's really good to kind of see them develop those strengths. And I also have another student who, right over here, he's actually conducting a survey. This student chose a creative problem solving unit, which follows a series of steps to solve authentic problems. It's a little like the scientific method in that way. And so this student is applying the data gathering step by going around and conducting a survey. In this instance, the student was wanting to survey people's attitudes towards wearing masks during COVID. And so it's kind of interesting. And then we were able to talk about just sort of the takeaways from the data that was gathered there. Rocking and rolling. So onto the that kind of cybersecurity unit actually led to this student wanting to learn how to build a website. And so this student has resources from that have been shared from family friends that are actually build websites. And so he's kind of played around with some of those websites, but also using some of the links that we also have in the unit. And they're kind of same thing, another student learning how to write code with the lessons in Khan Academy. And so it was really cool seeing their presentations that they had made. And actually, these are the two students, sixth grade students, working on the stock market game. So, and I think they're looking at even investing, stock market kind of play money into some companies that build websites and even getting into cybersecurity. So pretty cool stuff. This is what it can look like, the Rube Goldberg contest. This is my seventh grade class where I've got the two teams. They're working on their Minecraft builds. And then this is another group of students. They're working on their Minecraft build as well. Let's see if I can take you to. And so while they're working on this Rube Goldberg Minecraft challenge, they're actually applying the engineering design loop, which is one of our learning goals for the sixth grade year. And so they're going to really get some good experience with it. When we get back from spring break, we're also going to do some whole group challenges that are going to include that model as well. So really cool experience. And just kind of show some of the process of Rube Goldberg. They are using the creative GT processing skills from the very beginning, sketching out a plan, right, for the book that they're going to construct to be able to open and illuminate it, brainstorming ideas for their themes. These are just some examples of one team's brainstorming and planning. And then another student decided to sketch out their storyboard for the theme for their story. It has to do with kind of a fantasy world where you can go through you have a kind of small world, like it starts with a strip mall, and then you go through a book, and then it transports you to this big fantasy world after has a very strong, never-ending story feel to me. And then our team Giga Chad, who actually won um, a $175 Amazon gift card from a preseason challenge. This is their storyboard that they developed for their Minecraft build. And so this is just kind of showing, I just wanted to share with you some of the preparation work, that it's not all just in the Minecraft world. They're actually using multiple types of formats, I guess, for information in their planning. And so just kind of, and also it connects to a little bit of the 7 habits of highly effective people or highly effective teens, right? The big build is the end in mind. This is the goal, right? The problem that they should be working towards. Kind of an example of one of the fantasy themes that one of these groups is doing. So this is just kind of show you the work that they do, and that it does involve a lot of thinking. So here's some other student samples. Now, as students are working on their independent units, I do like to have them complete a learning journal weekly. At the beginning of the week, I have them set a to-do list, identify, just bullet point 1 to 3 things that they want to accomplish this week, right? And then at the end of the week, typically on Friday, I have them delete their to do list and then write their reflection. What did they learn? What was their focus? What did they do? Provide specific examples of what they did. I love it when they show pictures, right? Or links. Like if their stock market game is having them do complete a document, I like them to provide links to the document that they did. And that just helps us to kind of monitor that learning and stay focused. So here's kind of an example of them setting that weekly target, or here's kind of like what the reflection looks like at the end. This is from a student that was working on the cryptography. And this is where I love that they get specific. This is, I think, from one of the virtual students. And so this student even checked out a book for this topic. So just really cool seeing what they do. And sometimes in their reflections, I'll see that they will even kind of take their project and go above and beyond. This student put in links, right, for what they were learning. And I like them to also tell me what is it they're going to do next? What's the next goal? And so although no matter what unit they're on with learning menus, I want them to stay goal oriented, right, and tracking their progress. Um, if we'd been able, if I'd been there in person, I would like to for you to have been able to click around on these links and explore some of these things. So I'll just show you an example. This is a student that did the survival short story, and they chose to do a choose your own adventure story. And so on their Google Slides, each one has like he's got the story here, and then each slide you get a choice. You can go on a vacation, you can stay home. So let's say this is a survival story, so we're going to say you go on vacation, and then this scenario happens: turbulence on the flight. The flight attendant tells everyone to remain seated, but oh my goodness, you drank a lot of water and nature calls. So let's get up to go use the restroom and see what happens. And then so he has the scenario. So anyway, so you've got this link if you kind of want to see more about this style of presentation. But I thought it was really creative. And actually, this was that student's outline, just one page of the outline of their choose your own adventure survival story. So it was pretty cool. And I think that it shows I think this shows some divergent thinking as well, some outside the box planning. I really liked it. Here was a cryptography presentation from one of the students that this I thought was very good. And this student was learning about different types of ciphers. And I think this child even took it again to some things that I just didn't know much about. Excellent presentation. I also like that this student demonstrated their ability to organize information in a presentation that is pleasing on the eye. It's well organized. And they even kind of, I got to learn some things about some of these ciphers that I didn't know on my own. So it's just kind of really cool. See, this is just an example of the student that did their brochure for the university. So here's an example of the bibliography. So well done. I want them to definitely go into high school knowing how to do that. And this student did. I'll just show you the brochure that they did for Berkeley. So this is pretty cool. It's one that this child is interested in. And so this is kind of what the brochure looks like. We originally tried to do that, trifold type brochure. That was the first choice. But we're still going to have to find maybe some resource that helps them to develop that pretty easily. It was becoming very problematic, and it was becoming a source of stress. And so we just decided, let's use this format. I wanted the child to focus on the information they were getting, not stress about developing a brochure. So you can always go through these links on your own. And so just wanted to close out by sharing with you some of the things that the students have said. So these are just some quotes from these students. And I'll let you can, of course, read these quotes on your own. One of the things that was in common from all the students was that they really appreciated getting to choose what they wanted to choose what they learned about. They really, really liked that. And they said that it generally just made it more fun. And some of the students chose something that was really difficult. And I definitely wanted to encourage that. And I think that helped them. They feel very successful when they've learned something that was difficult. Um, and several of them said that it's good to have those open-ended topics, or being able to present however they want. So they could make posters, they could do Google Slides. Now, one thing I do tell them is that when they choose how to present the first time, like say Google Slides, the next presentation they do, I do tell them it needs to be different. So we don't want them only doing Google Slides. I want them to try different things, and to explore different media formats. And one of these students did say, they're speaking to all of us teachers out there. If you choose to do this, it would be a good idea to include an open-ended choice so that a student can learn something of their own interest if it's not an original option. That's kind of like that the board game escape room idea. So it was just like, all right, let's try something different. I'm really open to what they want to learn about. Um, and so, just some things that I kind of think about it and kind of doing some reflecting about next year. I definitely feel more like a facilitator than I've ever done. And whenever we're doing these learning menus, it's really not 5 days a week, all throughout the whole year. It's really, I have found that. Um, even to help keep them engaged with it every day. What we do is the students will participate in this about 2 to 3 days a week, and I've definitely found a benefit in setting aside 1 to 2 days a week for some kind of whole group lesson or activity. That's also whenever they do independent reading, and I conference with them one on one. So the trick is really to not be same every single day. So there's a lot of room to kind of make this flexible to fit your schedule, to fit your style, but to allow them to choose what they want to learn about. Now, what's also cool is that whenever the students present, even the students who didn't necessarily choose that unit, they're still going to get the big ideas from the unit, because those who are presenting about the unit are going to share that information for them. And so, like, if I have, like, I think the first time with the sixth graders, first quarter, I had 2 or 3 students who all chose forensics. And so the whole audience, they saw 3 presentations on forensics. And what was cool is each of those forensics presentations kind of had something unique and different, but they all included the 7 S's. They all included like the low card exchange principle. But one of them focused more on fire investigations and arson. Another one would focus more on like blood spatter and fingerprints kind of stuff. And then another one really looked, kind of wanted to look at the investigations like homicide type investigation, kind of like the Barry Kudo one, and using the kind of focusing on like the patterns, the search patterns that investigators do. So really cool. It is important, I think, to be flexible. I've learned that some students are going to want to work individually. Some of them want to do small groups. And as I said, my 7th graders, they actually chose something as a group of 5, in these small class sizes. They're all working on something in that particular class period. So just flexibility is definitely important. So next year, because I want to bring in some units that I've never gotten to teach, but I have colleagues that have done it. I'm bringing in mythology. I've got some students that would love to do a mythology unit. So right now I'm gathering, kind of rating my colleagues, our shared Google Drive for mythology material, and I'm going to make that for next year. I've had some students who want to like make their, do something with cooking, make a cookbook. And so I'm thinking about trying that after spring break with my virtual students. They were kind of the first ones to bring up that idea. So I've got to think about, well, if they want to make their own cookbook, what would be a good expectation for that? And I'm sure it's going to be able to fit in really any of the GT processing skills, particularly probably the creativity ones, but also some things involving research, right? So I've got to look into what that might look like. Now, at the beginning of doing learning menus, getting everyone started, it definitely felt like herding cats. If any of you guys have, thought of the idea of what it would be like to take cats out, on the range and herd them to the next spot. And of course, there's always ads. Some
This
of you
man
may have
right here
seen
is
this
my great
commercial
grandfather.
before.
He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy. Anybody can herd cattle, holding together 10,000 half wild short hairs.
Ain't that like middle school?
All together.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds,
You see the movies, you hear the stories.
I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
So, man, that really is like teaching. Now, I know this is some kind of ad for a technology company, but frankly, I think EDS, that teaching is a lot like herding cats because they're all going different directions at first. But man, um, it's once they all kind of come together, it's definitely rewarding. And so, even though it feels like herding cats at the beginning, this is the overall goal that I would like to see, what I like to feel like it is at the end, or once it's all going, that it really does kind of feel like you're almost conducting an orchestra. In one section of the orchestra, you've got some people working on a Rube Goldberg machine in Minecraft, others doing the stock market game, others doing CPS or forensics or cryptography or working on fashion. And so it's like everyone's kind of has what they're working on, but all together, it I think does kind of create kind of something beautiful at the end of it. So that is, I believe, the end of this presentation. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention. If you do have any questions, my email, I think, should be provided through our Agate resources. But I am Kelly.McCauley, Kelly McCauley at rps30.k12.ar.us. Yes, it is the longest email in the universe, but feel free to contact me if you do have questions or if you would like some resources shared. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you next time. This is that Codes and Ciphers book. If any of you are interested, Fowler's Codes and Ciphers, it can be found on Amazon. Feel free to take a picture if you need to. So, super cool book, and wanted to show you guys some of the puzzles there. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff. All right, take care, stay warm, stay cozy.